Hey, what's up? It's me, Lex, back at you with another Pathfinder video. Today I'm going over the Bloodrager class archetype for the Barbarian. First things first, thanks to Paizo for the complimentary review copy. As always though, my opinions are my own. Before we get into anything at all here, I want to upfront show that I have implemented the errata that they have given us in advance in the blue boxes here. I've just overlaid the proper text. And then I have red boxes over here on the additional feats that change the level of the feat to the level that the Bloodrager gains access to them. So, the Bloodrager class archetype is for the Barbarian. The goal of it is to make a spell-slinging Barbarian, sort of like a mix of Sorcerer and Barbarian in one. And how it accomplishes this is it makes your barbaric potency, I would say, that is your ability to straight up just hit things and hit them really hard, is a little weaker than some of the other instincts. But you gain the ability to cast spells. You can even cast them while you're raging. And you do so with this neat mini-game of the drained condition. The Bloodrager spells, casting them makes you drained, and then the only way to reduce that drained is to hit enemies and harvest their blood, which can give you bonuses against them and kind of pulls back on that drained condition. But being drained can also make some of what you do stronger. So up front real quick here, at the very start, the additional feats for the dedication are a split shot at 4th level, which is a spell shape that lets you basically cast a spell that has an attack roll against 2 targets and do half damage to the second target. At 8th level, rather than its standard of 4th level, you get Bespell Strikes, where once a turn when you cast a spell, your next strike during that turn does some extra damage, just a little bit of force. And then at 12th level, you gain Energy Ward. It's usually a 6th level feat. And it's a spell shape, or it's a free action where once a turn, when your most recent action was to cast a non-cantrip spell that dealt energy damage, you gain resistance to one type of energy of your choice from a list of most of the energy types equal to 4 plus the rank of the spell. Now we can get into the specific bits for Bloodrager. At 1st level, when you take the class archetype, you become trained in athletics, medicine, and a number of additional skills equal to 2 plus your intelligence modifier instead of the normal spread. And the normal spread, just for context here, is just athletics and 3 plus your intelligence modifier. So all this is doing essentially is locking in one of your additional skills into medicine. And then you must choose the Bloodrager Instinct, which is presented below. The Bloodrager Instinct is all about drinking the potent magical blood of supernatural creatures. Well, you have done so, and it's a awakened magical power within you, and a grim thirst. You have the Instinct ability at 1st level for Blood Rage. When you're raging, your physical attacks deal extra persistent bleed damage, equal to half of your additional damage from rage. So rage gives you 2 extra damage, you're also going to be doing 1 extra persistent bleed on a hit. And then additionally, this is something I'm not quite sure about. When you cast a spell that requires a spell attack roll while raging, apply the additional damage from rage to that spell, even on a failure. It's specifically this even on a failure bit that confuses me, because spell attack rolls generally don't have failure effects. But the rest of it is very interesting. Being able to cast spells that have spell attack rolls and get your rage damage onto them. And then additionally, because it's physical attacks and not strikes of any kind, this means that you even get to deal extra persistent bleed damage on things like needle darts, because it's an attack with a physical object. Your specialization ability. So this is what you'll get at levels 7 and 15 alongside weapon spec and greater weapon spec. At level 7, it improves your rage damage from 2 to 4, and at level 15, it increases it from 4 to 8. Real simple. And then your raging resistance, which you get at level 9, is that you resist slashing damage and persistent bleed damage, as well as all damage dealt by the creature whose blood you last drank using Harvest Blood, regardless of the damage type. This right here is super solid, and I want you to kind of try and remember that, because you're going to be able to use Harvest Blood a lot, which means this is going to be giving you resistance to all damage dealt by the creatures you're fighting, usually. The dedication feat at 2nd level, and this has to take your 2nd level class feat slot, gives you a spell repertoire with 2 cantrips of your choice. You begin to go into either the arcane or divine spell list, and you make that choice here. You choose these cantrips from the common spells or other spells you have access to. At least one of the cantrips must require a spell attack roll. You become trained in spell attack mod and spell DC. Your spellcasting attribute is Charisma. Spells in your repertoire gain the rage trait while you are raging, and I like to focus on the while you're raging because it means that you can cast spells all the time instead of just in combat, which is very helpful. And finally, when you cast a spell from your repertoire, you become drained 1 or increase the value of your drained condition by 1. You can reduce the value of that condition only by harvesting blood. So this is what I'm talking about with the little drained minigame. And as a barbarian, you'll have likely very high constitution, but you'll have very good fortitude saves. So this drained condition, well, it will be hitting your hit point total and making that kind of a little less safe to be on the front lines. You have 12 hit points per level by default, so this isn't as dangerous as I think it might read on initial pull. You also become trained in Arcana if you chose Arcane, or Religion if you chose Divine, or a different one. The Harvest Blood action. It's a single action, no traits. If your last action was a successful piercing or slashing melee strike against a creature that is not immune to bleed, so you need to get into melee. You consume the blood lingering upon your weapon, reducing the value of your drained condition by 1, gaining temporary hit points equal to your constitution modifier, and gaining a +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against that creature's spells for 1 minute, or until you harvest blood from another creature. This is super solid. Being able to repeatedly gain temporary hit points is really going to help out with the becoming drained repeatedly situation, and being able to pull back on that drain is great, of course, and being able to resist spells a little bit is also very nice. Then we can get into the feats. There are 2 level 4 feats. First off, there's Blood Calls Blood. As a reaction, when you fail a flat check to cast a spell, or your spell would be disrupted by another creature's reaction, you finish casting the spell. You just get to do it. But then you become drained 1, or increase the value of your drained condition by 1. And again, this is playing with the drained condition, which I find very mechanically interesting. Just as a side tangent, I've been playing a wizard in Outlaws of Alkenstar, and I have purposefully reduced my hit points per level to 3 instead of the 6 that a wizard gets. So being able to play with something risky like this in an actual class officially, I think is going to be very interesting. I've been having a lot of fun with that. The other level 4 feat here is Rising Blood Magic. You gain the basic spellcasting benefits for the type of magic that you chose. It's the appropriate tradition. And each time you gain a spell slot of a new rank, add a common spell of an appropriate tradition and rank to your repertoire, so you are a spontaneous caster. In addition, when you cast a spell from your repertoire and you are at least drained 1, you get to increase the extra damage dealt by that spell from rage by 1. So down here in your instinct, where you get to add your rage damage to spell attack rolls while raging, if you're at least drained 1, then you get to increase that damage by another 1. And I want to pull over here real quick. I set up just some quick examples for people who aren't familiar with the multi-class spellcasting dedications. The basic spellcasting benefits are usually a level 4 feat, as they are here, and they give you from level 4, you get a single rank 1 spell slot, all the way up to level 8. It gives you a 2nd and then 3rd rank spell slot on top of that. We're going to move on to the only 6th rank feat here, which is Siphon Magic. As an action with the Rage trace, you have to be raging. If your last action was to harvest the blood of a creature that can cast spells, you can gorge upon the energies of their blood, regaining an expended spell slot that must be of a lower rank than the highest rank spell you can cast. This is quite excellent. Of course, it's not always going to come up because you have to be fighting an enemy that can cast spells, but being able to fill up a spell slot again, you have that ticked off in your repertoire, and then it's good to go again, is very excellent. And another thing that's very notable is that, of course, your Bloodrager dedication is going to be granting you probably your best source of spell slots, but this doesn't specify that it has to be a Bloodrager spell slot. So if you have other dedications that are giving you other types of spells, you can fill those up as well. And then you become drained 1 or increase the value of your drain by 1. So this is still going to be something that's kind of dangerous to use. Then we're going to move on to the level 8 feat, the only level 8 feat, Spell Drinker. As a single action, if your last action was to harvest blood, and so this means that this is a full turn thing, because you have to strike someone and succeed, and then use Harvest Blood, and then use Spell Drinker. And additionally, it can only be used once an hour, but it gives you a 3rd rank spell to your spell repertoire, just an extra spell there, as determined by the type of creature whose blood you just drank. There's a table, it's depending on the trait, so there's Aberrations give you Vampiric Feast, Animals and Beasts give you Summon Animal, and the creature will appear as an otherworldly version of the creature whose blood you drank, but you still get to choose which summon you want. Celestial gives you Holy Light, Dragon gives you Blazing Bolts, except instead of fire damage, it deals the same damage as the dragon breath of the dragon whose blood you drank, if applicable. Fae gives Wall of Thorns, Fiend gives Chilling Darkness, Giant gives Pummeling Rubble, Humanoid gives Crisis of Faith, and Monitor gives Impending Doom. And if the creature has more than one of the listed traits, you choose one and gain the appropriate spell, so you get to choose. If the granted spell isn't on your traditions list, you can cast it as if it were, and then it's removed from your spell repertoire after 24 hours, the next time you use Spell Drinker or when you next make your daily preparations. So this is an action to just add it for the rest of the day, basically. You don't have to use it then, but if you use Spell Drinker again, you will lose that slot. And then it has a special at the bottom here, and this received a slight bit of errata. I'm not going to read the old version just because I think it's best to keep the information concise, but if you have the Surging Blood Magic feat, which is the Expert Spellcasting Benefits feat, then you gain a 4th rank spell instead of a 3rd rank spell. And if you have Exultant Blood Magic, which is the Master Spellcasting Benefit feat, then you get a 7th rank spell instead of a 3rd rank spell. So this will automatically scale, and the creature that you harvest blood on does not need to be able to cast spells, so this is a consistent source of getting this specific list of spells, which is very, very nice to see. At level 10 here, we have Critical. As a free action, if your last action was a strike that critically hit a creature that isn't immune to bleed damage, you bathe in their arterial fluids. It increases your spellcasting efficacy. If your next action is to cast a spell that requires a spell attack roll, you roll the spell attack roll twice and use the better results. Or, if it requires the creature damaged by the triggering strike to attempt a save, they roll twice and keep the lower result. And there's no frequency on this, though you must be raging. I'm a huge fan of this. This is definitely going to make up for the fact that as a barbarian, and particularly while using archetype spellcasting, you're likely going to be struggling to hit your spell attack rolls. Critical, even though it does come in a little late here at level 10, is going to mean that when you get a critical hit, you can then get fortune or impose misfortune on the creature, and that's, you know, mathematically a quite large bonus. It's going to make everything you do a lot more reliable. And then it just has the expert spellcasting benefits and master spellcasting benefits at level 12 and level 18 respectively, though they do have some extra effects on top of them. The extra spellcasting benefits increases the extra damage dealt by that spell from rage, if it qualifies to apply rage damage, by an additional 2 to a total of 3. So this does stack with the Rising Blood Magic feature, as long as you were at least drained 2. And so this improves the damage up here, so you can get up to 11 on greater weapon specialization. And then at level 18, in addition to gaining master spellcasting benefits, if you are at least drained 2, rather than adding 3 as up here, you instead just double the extra damage dealt from rage. So your spell attack rolls are going to be dealing 16 extra damage from rage, which is not shabby at all, especially because you're going to be able to do that at range. And as I mentioned before, physical attacks, if you toss that onto a needle darts casting, which is on all spell lists, then you're going to also add an extra 8 persistent bleed damage. It's a lot of fun stuff here on the Bloodrager class archetype. And just for a run back and summary, or actually real quick, I want to show off the expert and master spellcasting benefits. From level 12 to level 16, the expert spellcasting feats give you a 4th rank slot, and then a 5th and 6th. And then from level 18 to level 20, the master spellcasting benefits gives you a 7th and then 8th rank slot. And that's all. Now for my summary. I'm a big fan of what they've done here with the Bloodrager class archetype. I quite like the ability to add your extra damage to spells. I really like what they did with the mini game of dealing with the drained condition and everything not necessarily being super easy to take advantage of. You can still use your spell slots for utility purposes and out of combat, but then you'll have to go in weakened and harvest blood to fill yourself back up. You can't sleep overnight to reduce that drained condition. You can't counteract it. The only way to reduce it is by harvesting blood, which I think is a lot of fun. It lets you kind of pull out your sword and get into character. Even though I don't think I'm going to be allowing physical attacks to mean things like telekinetic projectile or needle darts, I do find it very interesting that it is left open enough for that to be applicable. I'm still not quite sure what the even on a failure here means, because it requires a spell attack roll. I'm thinking maybe at some point in the development process they were thinking about letting it apply to save spells as well. They allow for Humidic Critical to function with saving throws, so not entirely sure about that there, but currently the Bloodrager functions best if you're using melee combat, and then whenever you get the right opportunity, you pull out either an AoE spell, just because those are going to be good and useful tools for you to have at your disposal, or a spell attack roll spell, that's a mouthful, to take advantage of your rage damage being able to be added to that. Your raging resistance is probably one of the better ones, honestly. Very, very strong, being able to just use Harvest Blood. You come up and you hit something once, and then you gain resistance to its damage until you do it on something else. And even though your rage damage is remarkably lower than a lot of the higher damage picks, the extra persistent bleed damage can definitely add up, and especially there are a lot of ways with like items and alchemists to kind of bolster persistent bleed effects. That's a lot of fun. I was a little surprised to find no blood sense feat in the class archetype, though they only have the 2 pages here to deal with it. So I'm sure maybe it got cut for space, or maybe it just didn't fit the theme that they were going for. And either way, it's easy enough to either accomplish through items or other archetypes, etc. Yeah, that's me. That's my thoughts on it. Thanks for watching the video. Leave a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. Toss me a few bucks on coffee if you want to keep the channel running. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. See ya. See ya.